into expanding on our capabilities in the QG Air area. No doubt we're already aware of 7 new aircraft. First one arriving sometime next year. That'll be similar to the craft behind me. But notwithstanding, I want to make this point up front. These aircrafts are used predominantly for vital organ transfer. It's about saving lives for Queenslanders. So let's not be mistaken when we hear people out there claiming that it's used for other purposes rather than the principal role. That is not the case. In addition to that vital organ transfer operation, it is important to make sure our police are fully provided with the best capabilities of getting them to locations like siege arrangements and getting their equipment with them. The new aircraft will provide particular greater hold capacity for that equipment to go with them and once again support them in those areas. Also search and rescue operations, also prisoner transfers as well, but also natural disasters. We're the most prone state for natural disasters. There's more inclement weather heading our way, so it's important we have these capabilities in place to service Queenslanders. We are a huge state. Melbourne is closer to Brisbane than Cairns is, so that gives you an idea of the importance of having the best specialist capabilities to get around the state and support Queenslanders. So I'm really impressed that we've advanced this, and I'm looking forward to the arrival of the first aircraft next year. I'll hand over to Assistant Commissioner Hill for some questions around and some explanations around the capabilities.
So, good morning everybody. My name is Marcus Hill, Acting Assistant Commissioner for Operation Support Command.
Are you able to tell us, so is 7 planes all being replaced by 7 new planes?
That's correct, but the fleet will grow by 1. So what we've got coming is 2 super mid-sized jets and then the 5 King Airs that will come. And then we'll keep 2 Caravans, which are the smaller aircraft. They're non-pressurised, single engine, because we need to operate those type of aircraft in the Torres Strait and also out of Cairns.
So do you have 6 at the moment and you're getting,
So when we had the fleet complete, we had 2 jets. So Queensland Government and the police have always operated 2 jets. So we'll replace the jets with new jets. And then we've run a combination of aircraft around the state. So the one behind me you'll see is being based in Brisbane. There's another one in the hangar which is the largest aircraft we currently own is based in Cairns. We also have a Caravan based in Mount Isa, a Caravan based in Cairns and one in Torres Strait. So at the end of the day we'll end up with 9 fixed wing aircraft. Ordinarily the fleet consisted of 8 fixed wing aircraft.
And are they all used for the same thing?
They're multi-purpose aircraft, so as you heard the Minister explain, the jets are predominantly used for transportation and also the organ transfers. So when we're doing up the specifications for the jets, Donate Life, who coordinate our organ transplants, they were obviously a key part of that. And then also our specialist police, who we had to buy aircraft that could carry a certain payload, could carry a number of passengers, and also the distances that we need to travel. So the jet aircraft, if we talk about them first, they can fly anywhere in Australia and New Zealand non-stop. That's very important when we think we've got to go to Perth for organ transfers, and also our specialist police who, while we normally operate within Queensland, occasionally we do have to operate interstate, and we have interstate agreements where we're obligated to do that. The King Air aircraft that we're getting, they will replace, as I said, a couple of the older Caravans that are not pressurised aircraft, they're single engined. So for Mount Isa example, we'll get a new twin engine turboprop aircraft that's pressurised. The capability that aircraft adds to Mount Isa is phenomenal.
Why are we replacing them now? Is this a time-sensitive issue? These planes no longer safe, or are they still safe to fly for the next year? Or?
They're still safe to fly. We have an incredible team of engineers who keep our aircraft airworthy, but an airframe at some stage becomes towards the end of its life. That's what we're finding now. The oldest airframe that we currently operate in our fleet is 30 years old. So it's time that we replace those aircraft with something that is fit for purpose and they're modern aircraft. We do that all the time, whether it's our vehicle fleet, whether it's our vessel fleet. At different stages we need to replace the fleet, and that's what we're doing here.
Do these new aircraft give you capability that you don't presently have, or are you just improving on the capability?
It gives us capability that we don't currently have. So at the moment we don't own a jet. We don't operate jets within the government aviation fleet. So that limits what we can do operationally. We do rely on charter aircraft, but obviously that's not ideal. The King Air aircraft that are coming give us incredible capability. They come with cargo doors, so during times of disaster we can essentially just pick up a pallet and drop it in the back of the aircraft and deliver it anywhere within Queensland. For our specialist teams, whether it's a dive squad, our special emergency response team, the same deal. We can just palletise their equipment, drop it in the back of the aircraft. The aircraft carry 10 passengers, so with their equipment and 10 passengers, again, we can go anywhere in Queensland.
Have there been any recent natural disasters or uses of this plane that the public might be aware of where those capabilities could have been improved by having these new planes?
Not so much around the natural disasters, because we obviously rely on other assets to do that, but we'd be able to do that in-house. But I'm quite sure that people have seen in recent times we've delivered our CERT capability to the Bowen area for a job up there. We've also done trips interstate to bring back high-risk prisoners that are being extradited. In the Gulf or in the Cape, we've done recent search and rescue exercises where the aircraft have been used. So the capability that we have now within the Queensland Police Service, so every aircraft that's owned by the government currently sits within the aviation capability group within the police. That gives us, as I said, we'll have 9 fixed-wing aircraft. We operate the 5 rescue helicopters. We also operate 3 Polair aircraft. And on top of that, we've got over 120 drones that operate throughout the state. So the aviation capability that Queensland now has, or will have into the future, is quite considerable, and it's better than anything in the country.
And given that you're sharing amongst organ retrieval, ministerial duties, does the extra 2 aircraft make you less likely to have capacity squeeze?
We'll only have 1 extra aircraft. Yeah. So at the moment, we do have capacity issues. Since July last year, we've carried 13,000 passengers in the aircraft that we've got. With the aircraft that are coming, that increases our capacity considerably. We'll be able to carry many more passengers. And the benefit of having our own aircraft is that we can fly at times that passenger transport don't operate, and we can go into places where passenger transport don't operate.
Slightly better case for Ms. Furner. The citation forfeiture, they were sold. How much for, and when were they sold?
I don't have the figures in terms of the sale amounts they were purchased for, but I understanding a aircraft like behind me here, this King Air will go to somewhere around a couple of $1 million. Notwithstanding that, these are important assets, so the government will always get the best value for that asset at the point of sale. So, that's the situation at hand, and yeah. I understand that's the figure, yeah.
And do you have a breakdown of flight hours for these, say over the last year, what portion of the flight hours would have been dedicated to policing, to organ retrieval, to ministerial travel?
I have an overall figure, I understand, of more than 3,400 flights in terms of arrangements for organ, police and all those amounts of capability use. So that gives you an idea over that last financial year, the use of the total air wing.
What about ministerial travel? How does that compare?
That would be very minimal. Obviously, over the exhaustion of the life of these assets, there's been less and less opportunities for ministerial travel. But those travels, once again, the principal role is organ donor transfer. In fact, there's been many occasions where, whether it be the Governor, whether it be the Premier or myself as a Minister, have been bumped because an organ transfer is happening. And that's what they're used for. So once again, that is the purpose of the use of these aircraft. It's not a purpose of making sure there's abilities for the governor or the premier or ministers to travel around the state. That is a lower tier of use of these aircraft.
Pre-election 2020, the Premier said we won't be buying any new aircraft financing, and you bought 7.
Well, that was at the point of before 2020, and at that point in time, the aircraft were running at their capability, but no doubt over time they're worn, they've reached their end of life, maintenance and also parts become expensive. So it's important that the government looks at the asset value of their assets they hold, and at the point of renewal, act upon that. And I'm sure any Queenslander would put any price on this of a life-saving organ donor transfer rather than have any complaints about the costs involved of the use of these aircrafts.
When you make an election promise to say you're not going to buy any more planes, surely that holds for the period of that term.
Well, I think I've answered that question.
Do you think it's value for money then?
My understanding that the recent purchase is extremely value for money.
Will we ever get a cost breakdown of each individual plane?
I'm sure that's a question that would be available at some stage.
Did we need 7 new ones, or could we have done with maybe 3 new ones and kept a couple of old ones?
No, once again, the fleet had reached its end-of-life capability, so this is an investment, as the Assistant Commissioner indicated. Some were 30 years old. So when you combine that period of use of an asset, the cost of maintenance, the cost of trying to get parts for those, it becomes at a point in time where you need to act.
When was the last time you flew on one?
Gee, I think it might have been earlier this year on one of the King Airs.
And what was it for?
I'd have to go back into my diaries to be honest, but obviously all the flights that ministers, the Premier and the Governor take are for purpose of making sure that we utilise these assets appropriately and responsibly.
Minister, some more disturbing allegations surrounding the Mackay-based hospital today, particularly one neurologist who's been suspended. The opposition claims the Health Minister was aware of these allegations as far back as last year and has failed to act. Is that correct in your view?
And my understanding is the Health Minister acted in terms of not only the review of the Mackay Hospital and accepting those 122 recommendations, but the Mackay Hospital acted on the basis of when that information became available of the particular doctor, suspended that doctor immediately. So all the measures were in place to make sure action was taken against that individual.
These allegations don't actually use those not concerned.
Once again, the actions were made against that doctor at the point in time when those allegations were understood and exposed, and the hospital took action immediately upon those.
The opposition has called for the Health Minister's resignation. Quite much you knew about it. Should she go?
Not at all. This is probably the best health minister that has put us through a period of time of urgency through COVID, extreme pressure on the health system, and she is doing her job exceptionally.
How much responsibility should the board take? They have until next Friday to plead their case.
That's a matter for the board, and I'm sure the health minister will make sure those decisions are made.
It's that time of year again where people start asking for, start debating daylight savings. What's your take on it?
There's no debate, I can tell you, around the cabinet table about daylight saving.
The Mayor doesn't want daylight savings. He's been very outspoken about that. He does want daylight savings rather. I guess if people in Brisbane want a referendum, would state government be open to having one?
At this stage, there's no debate around the cabinet table on it. So unless it reaches that stage, we'll be having that debate then.
What do you think farmers would want?
Farmers, well, once again, we're a large state, so it depends on what area of the state you farm in. You know, there's pluses and minuses against daylight saving, but at this point in time, it will be a decision that will be made by the government should it arise as a matter for consideration. Not necessarily. No, I don't. It's something I haven't turned my mind to because there's more priority and needs in Queensland than worrying about daylight saving.
Would you open the idea there are split time zones if that was the case?
Geez, I reckon that'd be difficult, but once again, reaches a point where it's a matter for consideration, all those things will be explored.
Just as the acting police minister, there's been 4 police-involved shootings in the past 5 weeks. So why do we think that is the increase? Is it people, more guns, less respect for police, people trying to confront them? Why do you think there's been this influence?
I think it could be a combination of all those sorts of things, but nevertheless, I had the opportunity to go out to the CERT Command Centre and get a briefing from them during the week. And I think there's a degree of people out there that may be either frustrated, may be suffering from mental health. One of the briefings they gave me was an individual that had been in a situation of suffering from mental health. So, those sorts of things arise, but it probably would be appropriate the QPS answer those sorts of matters. But, I'm really proud that, particularly being a son of a previous police officer, that we have the women and men in the QPS that go out there at times to save and protect our lives and put their lives at risk. We should be extremely fortunate of the work they do and pay them the respect they deserve.
On the other side, there's an escalation of gun violence amongst the general public. We saw another shooting yesterday on the Gold Coast. Is there any more that can be done to crack down on this?
Well, I think those matters are always a case of under review, like the matter you referred to, which I think you were alluding to up at Airlie Beach. That particular case is under review by the Ethical Standards Unit, and that's a matter of action the police always do in terms of looking at those issues.
Also on the other side, members of public using firearms, illegal gun use. There was a shooting yesterday on the Gold Coast, and that seems to be a bit of a hotspot down there, flourishing in the gun crime. So what more can be done from police or government perspective?
Well, that's why we made a commitment to put more police on at the last election. That's what we're doing. So more police, more resources like we got here today we're talking about. We won't stop until we're at a point where we're able to supply the resources that police need to make sure they crack down on criminal activities.
I just have one more question about these planes. Queenslanders are battling a cost of living crisis. Rent is going up, grocery prices are going up. Our hospital system needs more funding. Their rent is going up. What would you say to Queenslanders who are watching tonight who are really wondering why we're spending $157 million on planes?
Well, I know what one of my family members would say if they were on the table waiting for an urgent organ donor transfer. They would say, thank God for Queensland government for making sure that that organ got to me to save my life.
Why was this not in secret though? I mean, we've talked about procurement of these plans for a while. Why wasn't this on the table until now, today?
There was a lot of discussion around the cost of the particular assets. That is commercial in confidence in regards to what the purchase prices were for each individual aircraft, I understand, but I can assure you it's been explained to me that they got the best value for the assets they could possibly get.
And what's the lifetime on these assets? How long will it be until we need to buy new planes?
Well, I guess it depends on the suitability. I'm sure we went out and tendered for the best suitable aircraft, and as the Assistant Commissioner explained earlier, we have capabilities now that exceed what we initially had. So we've done a good job. We've done the job we were tasked to be given, and let's see how they go out there in the use of their particular asset.
What is the time frame? I know you mentioned the first one arrives early next year, the rollout for the second aircraft.
I understand over that period of time that you'll see the Beechcraft come through, and then in 2024 you'll see the first jet arrive.
Do you know how long the Hawker jet was grounded before we sold that?
No, not particularly. I know there's been circumstances in the past where one aircraft was struck by lightning when a previous minister was in it at the time. So there are circumstances like that where aircraft need to be maintained and also replaced in terms of the particular parts. So I'm uncertain about the length of time in that particular.
Just last, could you just tell us why those two jets, just that particular sale of those two, why was that not made public? How was that done?
I'm not certain about that.
Police shootings. We often hear in situations like that that the taser is not an option. Are there any other non-lethal options that could be explored, just sort of free gap between the tasers and firearms?
there's a number of less than lethal options available, but when somebody's got a knife and they're within close proximity, then you want to really know that whatever use of force you're using is going to work. And the problem with people armed with knives is that they're highly mobile, that if they're within a matter of metres from you, then whatever you're using needs to be able to stop the threat immediately. So there's a lot of talk around tasers. They are effective in some circumstances, but when people are advancing with a knife, that's probably not one of them.
With the number of four shootings, police shootings in 5 weeks, is that just an anomaly, or is there something out there that's causing this sort of shootings?
I think it's probably just an anomaly. There's certainly nothing that I'm aware of that would warrant the increase. And a lot of times it's just down to the choices that people make and their level of motivation.
Thank you.
I'll just clear up one thing. I don't want to contradict the Minister, but the total purchase price of the aircraft was 101 million US. It's been reported as 157 Australian. The actual number that was spent was 136 million Australian. At the time of the purchase and the contract signing, obviously exchange rate was different, and because we knew we were buying in US dollars, there was some hedging that was undertaken to solidify our position. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Do you know the individual prices then?
I do, but obviously we bought 5 aircraft, 5 King Air aircraft. If you buy 5 of anything, you get a good price. So, and likewise with jets, if you buy 2 of anything, you get a good price.
So they're identical jets?
Yes.
How much do they cost?
If I separate the price, then you can work it out. I'm not that smart, but you divide it by 2 and you got the price.
So what percentage of the 101 US million were the jets?
Yeah, I'd prefer not to go there. All I can say is that we got extremely good value for money. The Gulfstream G280 jets are an outstanding jet. They can carry more, they can fly further distances, they can take off and land in shorter runways. So for our purposes, they fit the bill really well.
Are they brand new?
Yes.
All
All aircraft are brand new.
So someone that's just like, I don't know much about planes, 2 jets, 5 King Airs. Is the King Air just, how does that differ from a jet?
King Air is what you see behind me.
Okay.
and all the 5 are identical.
Yes. Yep.
So we'll have 5 King Air, 2 jets, and then
2 caravans.
2 caravans. And they'll be stationed all over the state.
Yeah, so at the moment we operate aircraft out of Brisbane, Cairns, Horn Island and Mount Isa. So, and I know a lot's been made about, 7 jets, but we buy 7 boats and nobody bats an eyelid.
Do you need, last one, more staff here?
Yes, we will. We'll have to bring on more engineering staff and more pilots because the arrangements that we're going to put in place, obviously as the capability grows, as I said, this is the first time that air assets owned by the state sit within the one group. So they sit within aviation capability, and we will provide an aviation capability, a frontline aviation capability to support our frontline people across Queensland, and that will vary from 24/7 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, depending on the location.
Presumably your operating budget has increased also, right?
Yes.
Just one more. So this deal was obviously inked before we knew how chaotic the commercial airline industry was going to be post-COVID. Do you see this as, is there any benefit in having this new fleet when we know that flying commercial really isn't an option for ministers or for police at the moment with how crazy everything is?
Well, a lot of the work we do, if you take, for example, the shooting in Early Beach, if we had the new fleet and it was available, then ethical standards, the CCC and support people that had to go to Early Beach, we could have flown them from Brisbane at 3 a.m. if we needed to. As it is, they've got to fly commercial. They don't arrive in Early Beach until 11 a.m. the next day. So we lose an immense amount of time while we sit around in airports waiting for planes. So the big thing is that we can fly when we want, where we want, and how we want.
Thank you.